call this meeting to order with prayer for the allegiance. Prayer by Richard Hayden.
Well, welcome you again to our Shelby County Board meeting. We ask you guide us through this meeting and help us make decisions that will benefit the people of Shelby County. We ask you watch over Lee Connor's mother and Bob Jordan, our board member. He's back in the hospital. And we pray that when everybody leaves this meeting, we all leave as friends. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jessica, would you call roll?
Jim Arthur. Earl Baker.
Here.
Kenny Barr.
Here.
Barbara Bennett. Here. Bruce Cannon.
Here.
Brian Kaufman.
Here.
Dennis Sternovich.
Here.
Jesse Durbin.
Here.
Gary Gergany.
Here.
Richard Hayden.
Here.
Robert Jordan. Kay Carney. Here. Larry Lenz.
Yes.
Terry Metzger.
Here.
Frank Mulholland.
Here.
Robert Orman.
Here.
Gary Patterson.
Here.
Robert Simpson.
Here.
David Switz.
Here.
Dale Weatherill.
Present.
Lynn Williams.
Here.
Present.
Okay, the way this meeting is going to run today is I'm going to make an appointment, and then I'm going to stand beside and turn the meeting over to Jessica, where she's going to run the election of the county board chairman. So,
A little louder, Chairman, I can't hear you.
oh, excuse me, we need to approve the minutes before we go on. So do I have, the minutes have been submitted to everybody. Does anybody have any suggestions or changes to the minutes, or do I have a motion to approve them? Frank?
I move to approve. Second.
Richard Hayden moves to approve them. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. With that done, we have a vacancy in District 10, and I'd like to appoint Levon Cheney. Levon, would you come up to fill that position for District 10? Do we have to swear?
We need a motion and a vote.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have a motion from Lynn and a second from Denny. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those against say nay. Motion carries. Levon Cheney, you are appointed, and Jessica's going to swear you in.
Okay, raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Levon Cheney,
Having been appointed to
have been appointed to
the office of Shelby County Board District 10
the office of Shelby County Board District 10
in the county of Shelby
in the county of Shelby
in the state of Illinois,
in the state of Illinois,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the state of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the state of Illinois,
and will faithfully discharge the duties
and will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of Shelby County Board District 10
of the office Shelby County Board District 10
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
And with that, do I just turn the meeting over to you? Or do I call for the
You can call for a nomination.
Okay. The next thing is nominations for chairman. Do I have any nominations?
I'll nominate Bruce for chairman of county board.
I have a nomination by Barb for myself, Bruce Cannon, to run as chairman. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Richard Hayden seconds. Do I need a favor, or is that just a vote on that?
Well, are there any other nominations?
Yes, there will be, I'm sure. David Switz?
Nominate Dale Weatherill.
David Switz nominates Dale Weatherill. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second from Brian Kaufman. Any further nominations? Okay, with that, I leave it up to Jessica.
Mr. Chairman, by proper law, you gotta 3 times that.
Yeah, you do.
3 times what?
Ask if there's any more nominations.
Do I have any more nominations? That's 2. 3rd time, do I have any more nominations?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
4th time, any more questions? Okay. Jessica, it's up to you.
Those voting for Cannon, can I see a show of hands, please? And those for Weatherall, could I see a show of hands, please? Okay, by a vote of 10 to 8, I show Bruce Cannon will be elected your new chairman.
You need to swear me in?
No, you're already sworn into the board, but
Because,
no.
okay, so then I need to,
Elect a vice chair.
I will no longer be vice chairman. I need a nomination for vice chair. Dale?
I want to concede my election to you. I thank you. I did hate leaving this seat right here because it is a nice place to be sitting.
It's one of the better ones other than this one.
Good job, Dale.
Do I have a nomination for vice chair? Okay,
I nominate Frank Mulholland for vice chair.
Frank Mulholland. Frank Mulholland, and do I have any others?
I nominate Danny Dimmervig.
And so I have a second by,
I decline the nomination.
okay, Denny declines the nomination. Do I have any other nominations? Going 3rd time, any more nominations for vice chair? Those in,
I'd like to nominate David Swets,
okay,
Vice Chairman.
so we have David Switz and Frank.
I'll second.
Second by Dale. And David Switz.
Could we get a show of hands, please, for Mulholland?
We have a show of hands for Mulholland.
Okay.
And a show of hands for Mr. Switz.
Okay, it looks like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. Can I get a show of hands for Switz again, please? I'm missing one. Okay. From a vote of 10 to 8, Frank Mulholland will be the new vice chair.
Okay. Congratulations, Frank. LaVon, your chair will be right there.
Okay.
That was my old chair, and since I get to move, you get my old chair, you're in Bob Jordan's seat.
Okay.
And that's okay for this meeting, but
Yes,
just so that you
Jessica
know.
told me she'd move.
Okay, on with the board meeting. Jared, you've got a presentation, request for approval of resolution authorizing the board chairman to enter into another intergovernmental agreement with Christian and Montgomery counties to establish joint emergency telephone systems which was tabled at the December meeting. That didn't go well in December. What's changed?
So Montgomery County had an informational meeting similar to the one that we held here about a month ago. And they have not voted on their side of the agreement yet, and they don't anticipate to do that until next Tuesday evening. So what I would recommend to you guys would be to table this until after their vote also.
I so move.
We have a recommendation and a motion by Dale Weatherall and a second by Gary Gardini. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those say nay. Okay.
I would like to see some discussion on that. 5 of us went Monday night, and obviously, I think that's the first informational meeting they had had. And it looked to me like about a fourth of their board was ready to merge, and about a fourth of their board was looking for information, and half of their board was looking for enough information to make up their mind. And we stayed around for about 2.5 hours and then left, but that was my feeling on the meeting. I don't know about any of the other guys here, but they said the only thing time-wise that's coming up, you have to apply for grants by the first couple of days of February, which obviously they're not going to get reorganized in time to do that as a new group. And I don't know if they apply for grants under their old names and get them, whether that carries over to the group or they lose them. It seemed like there was a lot of questions still to be answered, because a couple of key things that came up that night was they're in a $900,000 contract that's just recently been signed with Motorola to upgrade their systems over there, and nobody seemed to know what was going to happen with that contract, whether they were going to have to pay it, whether the new group, the sheriff, somebody else was going to take some of it. I mean, they didn't seem to have any idea where that was going. And there was very definitely, there wasn't really, I'd say everybody there was very calm and just trying to get information so they could make the decision, but we could tell at that meeting they weren't close to deciding yet.
Dale?
They're in the debt. They're in debt. They can't do anything. They have no money to keep going. They have no idea how they're going to fund this here. They lost the power plant over there, which was a $900,000 income for them. So this is really strapping them. I think their main concern is that if they join with Christian and Shelby County, that once they join with some other organization, they can never go back to where they were. If they said, well, we don't like it, we want to go back, no, they're stuck. And I think that's what really scares them. They're struggling right now, but it's not like a flat tire yet. It's just getting low. And I think they're just struggling.
Danny?
Dale and Gary are both right. I went to that meeting Tuesday and Monday, I'm sorry, and a couple weeks ago we had another meeting out at the visitor center, and the same thing came up, that for 7 years Montgomery County has been getting money for that system, but they have made no upgrade. The reason I mention that is just a word to the wise to us. They were robbing Peter to pay Paul. Well, now they're in the ditch. So.
Yeah, and it sounds like we really need to do a lot. Look, I would be concerned that we don't pick up a lot of financial liability from Montgomery County.
Yeah, they've had discussions about, or at least my conversations with representatives from there, they've had conversations with their rep from Motorola regarding that contract. And to be honest with you, I can't remember exactly what the outcome of that was. So it's kind of interesting to hear that they still don't really know what the answer would be.
They didn't know. They said basically if somebody committed to contract with some dollars, it sounds like this Motorola rep will let them out of more than if they just walk away and say, we're not going to pay another penny on it. And they got a $180,000 grant, which I assume they lose the grant if they don't go on forward. And
If I remember right, there was a buyout in that contract where they could buy out.
they kept basically around $200,000 they thought would be the buyout, but yet nobody wanted to commit to that. They just thought that's what it would be.
And kind of like I said last month and at our informational meeting, you know, we need to decide what's best for Shelby County and let Montgomery County decide what's best for Montgomery County, not base our decisions on the consequences for them. But you know, I'm glad that a number of you guys went and was able to learn more about it.
Because I think it'll be very good if they decide to join the group, because we're all very similar, but until they make up their mind, nothing needs to happen.
Earl?
Mr. Chairman, this brings up an issue that I've had in my mind for a while, is that I've been on other boards, I've been on school boards, city council boards, and we've always had lawyer representation, and I've never seen that here. And this brings up a good case here, that if we do bind agreement with the third party, as we see, and they bail on us, what legal realms do we have to get or recoup some of our funds? And there's some other issues that are going to come up that we need lawyer representation too at our meetings. So.
It's state
Yeah, the state's attorney's right here. That's
Do you want to speak to any of that, or?
I would just say, I mean, I generally.
I can't see her, or I can't hear my lawyer. If she's representing us, she needs to be in sight where everyone here can see who's talking.
Come on up here, Susan.
I was just gonna say, I generally will look at the intergovernmental agreement before it is signed, and if there's issues, we can address it before it gets signed. As far as any remedies of if somebody defaults on that, I mean, without looking at the language, it's hard to say.
I'd like to have her present at our meetings, Mr. Chairman, that if we have questions, we can get answers. And if she doesn't have an answer when she's here, she can send somebody to represent her if need be. That way I know that we're legally represented if we have questions or things that come up. You know, a lot of things going on in this world today.
Yeah, 2 questions. Did you have an organized presentation? Like something you want, an agenda of yours to go through to present, or did you just want to answer questions? Or I kind of feel like we're just kind of bouncing around and expressing what we saw and what we've heard. Do you have anything organized that you want to present?
no, because it's we presented that at the informational meeting, and I'm just kind of the 911 representative to present the resolution.
Okay, then I have a question. Can you explain the structure of the EMA board and the ETSB and how they're funded and how those are, when they're joint, when 2 counties go together as a joint ETSB, what happens basically?
So for an emergency telephone systems board, which I think is what you're talking about specifically, representatives from each, when we have a joint board like we do with Christian, we have representatives from each one that is established in the agreement, in the intergovernmental agreement. In our case, it's 5 members from Christian County, 4 members from Shelby County. If we were to take on Montgomery County, it would be a similar representation. It would be 5 members from Christian, 4 members from Shelby, and 4 members from Montgomery. And those boards are appointed by the county boards. With specific, you have to have specific individuals on each, representatives from specific disciplines.
Right. So that's the ETSB.
Mm-hmm.
The EMA, how does that, the EMA, is there an EMA board, is that correct, or a committee?
Just a committee.
A committee, and that is comprised of who and what's their responsibility?
County board members.
County board members.
Mm-hmm.
And then the county board EMA committee works with ETSB on what? I mean, how do they interact?
It's two separate entities. I brief the EMA committee every other month on kind of what's been going on with 911, because I'm one of the representatives from Shelby County for the 911 board.
Okay, so how is the ETSB funded? Is it county dollars dispersed by the county, or is it county dollars sent to the state, dispersed by the state?
The state it collects it through telephone, through the 911 tax on telephones. It's a per line tax, I'm not 100% on the
It says $1.50.
$1.50 right now, and that can change in July. That is collected by the state, is then dispersed to Christian County as the fiduciary for those funds.
So Christian County is the home county that would collect and then use those for improvements in personnel and whatever.
It's the 911 board makes those decisions.
Dale, what's your Frank voice?
That amount that Montgomery County gets is $42,000 a month from the telephone tax. Just, you know, so that would be.
So that's what they'd be bringing in as income, through the 911 central board, 42,000.
It was around 40 and now it's up to 42.
Because it's on cell phone lines and they're increasing.
Correct.
Okay. Frank, what'd you have?
Well, as a representative of the board to the 911 board, I think everybody here knows where I stand on this issue, with maybe the exception of Yvonne, because she hadn't heard me complain about it. But you gotta look very hard at what we will gain if we do consolidate with Montgomery County as opposed to what we will lose. I don't see that we're gonna gain a darn thing. Start to say damn, but, and I think that there are a lot of things that we will lose. And I worry quite a bit about their financial situation. And I worry that, and I know the money comes from the state, from the phones, from the 911 board, but I also know Montgomery County could maybe figure out ways to get into that money because they have over there. They charge rent for their dispatchers and quite a bit of money. So again, for the fourth and fifth time, I strongly encourage you to vote against this. That's it. That's all I got to say this time.
Danny, and let's end this with Denny's comments.
It was, if you attended the meeting at the Visitors Center here a couple of weeks ago, you heard Montgomery County Sheriff speak of this, and he is definitely against it. Went to that meeting Monday night over at Montgomery County, and 90% of the people that was present were firefighters, policemen, paramedics, this and that.
First responders.
Yeah, so I walked away with the thinking that the sheriff had organized that, which I don't have a problem with that. But just like you say, they're not going to. The board is not going to vote till next week. So
It doesn't sound to me like it's very favorable for us.
But we do have a motion to table this, right?
We have a motion to table this. Do I have a second?
Yeah, we had a second, we had actually a vote on
Jenny,
that.
and we had a vote. And so it's tabled and we've got further discussion. Okay, let's move on.
Mr. Chairman, while we have legal counsel still here, in case she has to leave, I'd like to get the definition of employer. Who's the employer of the county? Can she answer that? Who's the
county is
employer? When we
an
read legal
employer.
statutes, who's the employer?
Of the county?
Yeah, the county. Who's the employer?
I mean, the county is the legal
The county
entity.
is
I mean,
the
it's,
employer.
Huh?
The county is the employer. What, employer of what?
Well, we've got some literature talking about the, and it's not, I don't want to bring it up now because it's coming up later, but in case she has to leave, I just wanted to get the answer. Talking about the punch-in, punch-out policy we got, and it talks about Class B misdemeanors, and it says that the employer could go to jail.
Let's talk about that when it comes up. on
Yeah, but I
schedule.
just wanted to get the definition from our attorney, what the definition of employer is. Who
Let's
is the
get that at the
employer?
right, let's get that at the right time. I
Okay.
think the employer is.
As long as
the
she's still
county.
here.
I think it's basically her next on our, I mean, public portion.
Well, I think it's the next I think Erica's gonna bring it up.
That's
Erica?
I call for the vote.
Huh?
Did we vote?
We already voted to table.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay. Moving along, Erica, would you like to make your presentation?
All right, you've got the general fund available cash report, pretty straightforward, beginning balance, revenues, expenses. There at the bottom, the $1,607 liability. That's our annual liability and workman comp insurance that we pay out once a year. And that is also your reduction in the restricted funds from the $732,000 down to the $554. Available cash balance, $2,016,063.49. Any questions on that report? And as usual, you have your monthly investment report. Those are not going to come out in the packet anymore because per the auditors, they would like our interest to go on the month that it's actually added. What we've done in the past was, because we don't get statements in the mail, you know, they were usually shown on the next month because of when we get the reports. We're now doing our best to get all of that from the banks, getting it in the computer prior to county board day. So, the other thing I would like to discuss moving payroll in May to where the county pays in arrears. As things are right now, payroll comes into our office on Monday. If it's a holiday, we may have it as early as the Thursday or Friday, 1 week prior to when the paychecks go out. It makes it very confusing for payroll. It makes our documentation not correct in the computer system compared to maybe the paper documentation. And looking at the laws, the Illinois Department of Labor, U.S. Department of Labor, and the requirements that we have to keep legal records for payroll, I would like to change the payroll and do away with some of the confusion and lack of, what's the word? So that the computer system matches what our paper system says. As it is right now, a few months ago, we turn in payroll on Monday. I sign my payroll sheet. You know, my girls are there for 2 weeks. One of them misses a Thursday because of illness. So the computer says one thing, the timesheet says another. Well, then we have to make up for it on the next payroll. So then I have 2 payrolls that don't match. I don't like that. I feel accountable for that. I don't feel like it's being completely responsible with what it is we have to do. So I put in your packet, and I'm trying to do this to where there is the least amount of impact to our employees. It will impact me and my payroll as well, but May is our first 3-month payroll month. We typically take out insurances, union dues and stuff out of the first 2 payrolls, and then the 3rd payroll is a little bit higher, but in that month, what I would like to do is take those deductions for insurance and union dues out of the 1st and the 3rd. That middle payroll would be a 1-week paycheck instead of 2. Make it as big as possible for the employees. And then that 3rd payroll check in the month of May would be for 2 weeks again and 2 weeks moving forward, but it would be 1 week in arrears, so that we can move payroll, so that when I get the documentation in my office on a Monday, and the thing is, we have to have the payroll to the bank by Wednesday right after lunch. So by Wednesday after lunch, we're putting everything in the system at the latest on Tuesday. You know, we have 3 days if employees leave or are sick or personal days, whatever. That documentation is not correct. I've been told there are times, you know, employees quit and then they've gotten paid for days they haven't been here, and then whose responsibility is it to go back up for that money? My office is the payroll department, the department head as the department head, the county board as the employer. You know, where does that responsibility lie? I'd like to do away with that even happening.
I have a question.
Where we move into arrears.
And I know where you're going with this, but also have you checked with AFSCME, the union contract, if that's going to be, have you pursued that, or?
Yes. They had a meeting December 19th, and it was my understanding that AFSCME, I mean, they're not losing anything.
I know that.
It's not a
I know
past
that,
practice.
But they did sign a contract. A contract's a contract. And my thing is, just, is the language and, you know, they're in agreement with this?
My
And do you ha-
understanding
and
is
it
yes.
should be in writing.
I think what he wants to know is, can you do this in the middle of a contract? It's okay?
Yes, we can. My understanding is the union, I mean, they can't tell me a whole lot, but they want to fight it. I went to the union rep for the county and I met with her, and then there was a meeting. They can't give me a lot of information out of the meeting other than they're not gonna fight it, because it's not a past practice, it's not a loss. You know, and in reality, this protects you as the employer, the county board, myself as the payroll department, our employees. It protects everybody because it gets the documentation the way the documentation
I know it
should
protects,
be.
but
And brings us into compliance with the law. Because right now, we're not, I don't know that we're in compliance with the federal law, the state law, and we need to be in compliance, because when we're out of compliance and we get fees and fines on any audit, it's gonna be on the back of taxpayers. And then we're not, in my opinion, not being responsible with our duties to do what we need to do.
Mr. Chairman, question would be, will that affect the employee's pay day anyway?
No, they will still get a paycheck every other week,
Just like-
bi-weekly.
So they wouldn't see any?
Just that one
Okay.
paycheck, the second payroll in May, will cover 1 week instead of 2. Then that third payroll, we will actually move into 1 week in arrears.
Okay, sorry.
In arrears, mean they're not gonna be getting in there any money?
Hang on, Barb. Dale, you got a question?
I make a motion that we go for the change.
It wasn't on the agenda as a item to vote on today.
Okay, so she's just bringing information in? Okay, we get track.
Barb?
So,
1 week in arrears, that third payroll, which if you, the sheet that was sent out in your packet that says change, if you go to May, and the dates there, the dates that were paid, but the way it is now, when payroll's turned in on Monday, that pay period actually doesn't end until midnight or 11:59 on Saturday. So we're turning in information for days we don't know. The highway's a little bit different, which their dates are on there. They're actually only 1 day, 2 days in arrears, because their payroll, their pay date ends on a Wednesday. So it would bring everyone in the county under the same dates, same pay schedule, and that week in arrears is just so when on that 29th payroll, May 29th, documentation would be into my office, not on Monday the 25th, obviously, but on Tuesday the 26th. But it would cover the payroll through Saturday the 23rd. So the documentation that would be turned into the treasurer's office would actually be time already worked. It wouldn't be confusing, it wouldn't be guesswork, it wouldn't need to be changed on the next payroll. And so it would be 1 week in arrears. They would be getting paid for the 10th through the 23rd.
Danny?
Erica, I heard you say it was your understanding, and then I heard you say you didn't know for sure about the law. Have you gotten any feedback from the department head?
I haven't. I have sent this information out to the department heads back in April. These laws are the laws. I mean, they're pretty straightforward. I think they went out in your packet as well. We did get our update through our SERMA, which pointed out a couple laws that I wasn't even familiar with, you know, as far as the way things are. But I also think, as I think Mr. Baker was referring to, in that 820 ILCS, which I did send out in the packet as well, it says here that any employer as agent, it goes on, it says, shall be guilty of a Class B misdemeanor, and each day of such failure to keep the records required under this act, furnish such records, information to the director is authorized representative, or fail to post information as required herein constitutes a separate offense. Any such employer who fails to keep payroll records as required by this act shall be liable to the department for a penalty of $100. And there was in there up earlier that said that it's a Class B misdemeanor, punishable up to 180 days in jail and a fine up to $1,500.
Are you saying we've been doing this illegal for what, 30, 40 years? Are you saying everything we've been doing is not the right way to do it?
That's pretty much what I'm saying.
Mr. Chairman, I heard Erica make the statement that the county board's the employer, but I've not heard that from my legal counsel. If we wind up in jail being the employer, I would like to make sure my legal representation is telling me that the county is the employer, not my treasurer.
Well, I think technically, yes, the county would be considered to be the employer. Now, each department head still has discretion how to run their office as they see fit. If Erica would want to give all her employees $5,000 bonuses, as long as it's within her budget, she's legally allowed to do that. Now, would it be a good idea, you know, for the taxpayers? Maybe not. I mean, but, you know, so there is some, like, discretion, but as far as, you know, who pays us the money, that is the county.
Yeah. The word technical is a legal term when it comes to fighting a case. It's technical, or is it in writing somewhere that we are the employer?
I just wanted to put that caveat in there. The county is the employer, but each office holder has discretion to run their office.
Okay, so the employer is the final employer, but you're saying that the county can turn over that responsibility to the department head, or what are you saying?
No.
So it's always going to fall back on the county board?
Yes. Now, as far as this Class B misdemeanor, I mean, I'm not sure how I'm supposed to prosecute the county for a Class B misdemeanor. Who comes to court, you know, if we're in violation? I don't know the answer to that.
No, to my understanding, it would be the state fining us, and you would be representing us to fight the state in the misdemeanor and the fine.
Maybe. I mean, the state's never come in and prosecuted any other matter here in my years as state's attorney. That doesn't mean it's not possible, but.
I guess to me, it's pretty clean and simple that in the past, we have always paid and adjusted. Because obviously when we found out who actually worked till Saturday night, then the next payroll period, if it wasn't what we'd already turned in, it had to be adjusted. And on this system, we're actually paying people after they finish their week records. So it takes the pressure off all those people involved in payroll, which is every department does their own payroll. Erica does the payroll. We've taken pressure off a lot of people. Now everybody's records should agree. It should all be simple. Nobody lost any pay. Nobody gained any pay. So to me, it's just pretty clean forward and straight system.
Lynn? Steve, I'll
But
get you.
it's not on the agenda, right?
Not to vote on. No.
Okay, so we can't vote or anything. We can just have discussion on this?
Yes.
Okay. I understand, and I don't want to cut anybody off, but I'll stop right here, but I've got I think I understand.
I have a point of view though.
Sure,
I
go ahead.
generally sit here and say nothing. Erica, you're saying arrears. I think you should say withheld or withholding. That money's still there, it's not going out of somebody's paycheck.
No.
That, and then if you look around at quite a few corporations and different entities, you'll find that money is withheld for 2 weeks, not 1 week.
By state law, you can hold up to 14 days in Illinois.
Right. And that's something, it permits you then to adjust without any kind of problem that would occur with the state.
Correct.
Steve Malega?
I don't think there's any problem in holding 1 week behind the arrears. The question is whether or not during the budget year are you actually reducing their salary that year. If you paid them what their salary is for the year and held them in the arrears, I don't think that's a problem. But are you actually going to be with the budget year reducing their salary of all the employees in the whole county by 1 paid week?
Well, I would say it probably would.
You probably would.
But
I have a lot of nurses that can go down the road and get a job at the hospital and get a job at the nursing home that don't get paid anywhere like they do there. And I have new staff that don't have much time in comp time or sick time or anything that maybe the union is using to barter with you. And I will probably lose staff if their payroll is cut, if their salary is cut. I have no problem in it being 1 week in arrears. The problem is you're actually cutting the salary because you're making them wait till they retire at the end, or you're waiting, you're going across the budget year then. You're not going across the budget year? Yes or no?
You're not
I'm
taking,
still-
you're not taking
I'm
pay
still-
away from anybody.
You're taking 1 week, aren't you?
No.
Not
We're
no,
not
No,
taking
you're not
it away,
taking-
we're just
You're
paying
not
it
taking the
arrears,
week
and
away
if
from them.
they-
They're going to
if
get it.
they-
It's just withheld until
Okay,
1
okay,
week
guys,
later.
We're
They still
losing
get it.
control here. Hey, hang on. I think we've got time for a couple more questions, and we're gonna table this until the next meeting. Bobby, what's your question?
I just had a comment. I'm on the same schedule as what she's proposing. I get my D31 time period, January 15th. Now, year over year, that all melts in, is all the same.
You're talking about a 2-year period then, as it crosses over. So naturally though, you are reducing their pay in 1 budget year. You are, right?
Increasing the next.
Minute, yes or no? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, just make that clear, because we don't want to say that you're not reducing their pay, because they're smart enough to figure that out.
And the next year, they're getting the next year.
Yeah, but you're crossing the budget year, so if they made $30,000 a year, and they got 1 pay less, they have to wait till they go to the next year, and they have to wait till the next year, so you're actually holding it over year to year. The budget year runs from September 1 to August 31st.
Bruce, can I just clarify with Erica? Do you think there would be a way to address that issue? Because we've got until May, is what you're basically asking for authority to do, is that right? Change the pay period in May because it's a 3 pay period month,
Right.
correct? And in your judgment, that would be the least disruptive way to do it.
The least disruptive, but it also moves us to where we're actually paying people for work completed. The way it is right now, we're using public funds, taxpayer dollars, whatever you want to call it, and we're paying people for work that is not completed. The way this move also is to where work is completed, documentation is correct, we don't have all this back and forth, we're compliant with the law.
Understood.
Under law. You know what, if they get a paycheck now on December 29th for a payroll that doesn't technically end until January 3rd, then
You're assuming that they didn't work, though. They
I'm
called
not
off quit.
assuming that they
When
didn't
my
work.
staff gets their payroll check, when you direct deposit it, they work that full hours. It's only when I give you my payroll to process in advance. When they get their check, they've worked the full 2 weeks. There's no question about it.
I'm not here to fight with anybody.
Well, I'm just saying, just make that clear.
When you go to the withhold for a week, then when that employee retires, quits, leaves,
Yeah, okay,
what,
let's get it out, yeah, right, I understand.
can I finish my
Sure.
statement? Thank
Well,
you.
I'm sure they're recognized right now, too. At least I was recognized. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, let's,
When you pay, when you are withholding for that week as opposed to in arrears withhold, when that employee leaves, retires, quit, whatever, they still have 1 more paycheck coming to them. And it's for that week that's been withheld. They're not getting screwed, they're not losing that money. They get paid for every hour that they work.
I understand that, Martha. Barb, and we're gonna end up with Barb's discussion
A
here.
quick
Barb.
thing. You're saying though, it's like, all these office heads, they turn in their hours. It's not your place to question it. They give you their payroll. I don't care what they turn in, they're accountable maybe to the people of the county, but it's not your place to question their payroll. So if they wanna turn in a payroll, and you're saying we've been doing it illegal for all these years, well, maybe we haven't been because we've never ever been called on, there's never ever been any question. All of a sudden you're questioning every single thing we do, and I'm just saying, if those elected officials turn in that payroll, you pay it. I mean, it doesn't make any difference. They're qualifying their payroll.
I'm going to say this, I was designated as the HR department. My department is responsible. I am responsible to run my department based on the way that I understand the law. I was given the responsibility to take care of payroll.
But they turn it into you, so you, and we okay it, so you pay it. You don't get to come in here and question every little bitty thing.
I'm not questioning, Barb.
Yes, you do.
I've read state statute, and I'm making you aware of
Okay.
laws. I was speaking. I am making the board aware of laws that were not being followed. I'm not, it is my job to question. I'm educating myself, and in educating myself, I'm trying to educate the board so that we do and we are compliant with the laws of Illinois and the U.S. federal laws.
And with that, let's end this discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I would like
Oh,
to,
let's end this discussion right now.
I want to make the record known that our attorney says the employer.
I have a motion and a second. Okay, Erica, do you have anything else to address otherwise?
Mr. Chairman, I would like the record to show that our attorney said that the board is the employer.
Our attorney did not say that.
Of course he did.
I did say it. I
We
said
are
the
the
county is the
board.
employer that pays the money with that caveat.
Okay.
We got a motion on the floor.
What's the motion?
Okay. We have a motion to end this discussion right now in a second.
agenda?
Brian Kaufman, the second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Okay, with that, Alan Spesser.
Good morning, maybe?
Good morning.
Morning.
We might not finish that and get done with Alan.
Not really.
This guy always puts a good report
I
together.
didn't know organized. Okay. Bear with me a second. Okay, this morning I have two resolutions. I have some updates and I have my annual report where I'll be very brief. Trust me, I'll be brief. The first resolution I have is last Friday. We do every year, we have a culvert letting that includes the projected pipe culverts that we will purchase and locks in prices for the county highway department. We also do it, take orders from the townships as a service to them, and we also do it for municipalities just because we're doing it and a service for them. So we had 3 groups of culverts bid on last Friday. They were publicly opened and read. We had 2 bidders on each group. Group 1, which was for riveted pipe culverts and bands. The low bidder was Metal Culverts Incorporated at a bid price of $36,933.45. Group 2, which is for spiral aluminized pipe. The low bidder was Contact Engineered Solutions at a bid price of $30,250.95. And Group 3 pipe, which is polymer coated pipe culverts. The low bidder was Metal Culverts Incorporated at a bid price of $5,241.26. I am asking approval to award our annual pipe culvert.
So moved. Second.
Okay, who gave the motion?
Aye.
Frank the motion, and Dale seconded. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Go ahead.
Okay, also last Friday, we had our annual county rock letting, used to purchase rock. We also, as a service to the townships, well actually their motor fuel tax, we administer their motor fuel tax as part of that administration. We also bid the township rocks, and that occurred last Friday. The township rock, by the way, the authority to award contracts is the highway commissioner, so by statute, so we do not award county bids. The authority is the highway commissioner. So for the county rock, we had 11 different groups of material that were bid, rock material. Group 1, the low bidder was C&H Gravel Company at a bid price of $9.50 a ton. Group 2, the low bid price was by Brush Creek Quarry at a price of $12 a ton. Group 3 was Brush Creek Quarry at a price of $12 a ton. Group 4, we did not receive any bids. Group 5, the low bid was Hanson Materials Quarry at a price of $7 a ton. Group 6, low bid was Brush Creek Quarry at a price of $12 a ton. Group 7 was Hanson Materials at a price of $10.25 a ton. Group 8 was McLeod Express Hauling Company, stockpiling and hauling, at a price of $10.25 a ton. Group 9, low bidder was Hanson Materials at a price of $10.25 a ton. I'm sorry, Group 8 was, I said $10.25. I misspoke there. I got my lines mixed up. It was $15.95 a ton. So that was Group, and then Group 9 was Hanson at 10 1/4 a ton. Group 10 was Hanson Materials Quarry at $7 a ton. Group 11 was Hanson Materials at $7 a ton, low bidder. So I am asking approval to award those rock prices to those entities.
I have one, just curiosity question, or anything on the rock prices, did they increase a little over last year, decrease, stay static? I'm just curious.
The rock prices increased a little bit, not a lot, and in fact, what I do is I estimate the cost every year, and I usually estimate an increase in cost in almost every situation. In fact, I think every situation, but I'm not going to. I didn't really check it that close. The bid prices were less than the estimated cost.
Do you have a motion for approval? Dale?
I so move.
And a second, Brian Kaufman. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion for the rock carries.
I would like to go over the annual report next, and then I will bring you up to date on a few other items. Everybody should have a copy of this annual report. Danielle handed them out. If you don't, or if anybody else wants one, I think you have some extra copies with you. So she has them there if anybody would like one right now or later. And I'm going to be very brief. I'm not going to, it's a 19, 20-page report. I'm only going to go over a couple pages, much like I do every year at this time. Just page 2 if you don't want to read anything else in the report and just want to get kind of an executive summary of the major achievements. That's found on Group 2, and then you can throw the rest of the report away if you want. Just to go over it, we did have 4 capital improvement construction projects, 2 of which were completed, and 2 of them have been started in bridges, and they will carry over till this spring to be completed. We have a lot of petitions from the townships, as you all know, that we vote on quite often. We had 17 petitions installed over this year. That's quite a few numbers, and of course costs us money. It is a 50-50 cost share. We had awarded grants in the amount of $529,000 in township road improvements. They included railroad crossing improvements that I've reported on before, and we submitted and was awarded a grant for assessing culverts in the township's geographic information system. That work will be determined on whether some highway commissioners would prefer that not be done, and some do, so the scope of that work has not been determined yet. We did approve several new bridges to start the process of design and getting it programmed and eventually constructed. Those occurred in Ridge, Okanee, and on the township line between Ash Grove and Big Spring. And we will be receiving, as I reported several times, so I won't get into the details unless you want me to, the capital bill was approved by the governor, and we expect to receive additional funding in the future for our roads for that. Page 4 is my staff. just bringing up this page because it is a very volatile thing that goes on in our department, more so than ever. We have had several retirements, more coming on the way. We have significant turnover in laborers each year. We usually lose one and gain one, and lose one and gain a couple, and that's probably going to continue for a while. But this is our current staff, and that's the photograph of our current staff.
And when did it happen we changed that? Is it a starting pay or at all?
Well, we get applicants, and then there's a couple things going on there. First of all, I'm trying to decide what the right staffing level is. 20 years ago, our staff was 15 or 16 people. We're currently at 12. And I prefer to have the right staff, right quantity, and not more or not less. And so that's part of the issue that's going on. When I send out a solicitation for applicants, we do get responses. And for the most part, I think nowadays people they keep moving around, and especially seems to be in my department. When I first got here 20 years ago, people hired in and they kept these jobs. That doesn't seem to be the way of the world anymore.
Is the benefit package not an asset at all? I mean, we have probably better benefits than almost.
It is explained to people. Some hires, I think, understand it, some don't. I think our benefit package is very good, and I try and explain it that way.
I guess when you're young, you're not thinking about all these.
I'm sorry?
So when you're young, you're not thinking about all these benefits. When you get like my age. Thank you.
Or mine.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to ask Alan a question.
Go ahead.
She asked a question to me just so that everybody knows. She asked if they have to pass a drug test, and the answer is yes.
Do you find that after you train an employee, they decide to leave to go somewhere better?
No, I don't,
Okay.
because a lot of times they just go for almost a completely different career, honestly.
Another career.
Especially in the labor department, which is most of my staff. We
Okay,
have
thank you.
6 laborers, hopefully 6. Again, that's a volatile thing. Questions on that? Yes, sir.
Back on page 2, just if anybody asks in my area, the Ash Grove Big Spring border bridge, it's cost shared between the county and township, correct?
That is correct.
Did Big Spring foot half of the bill and Ash Grove foot half of the bill for the township side, or did Ash Grove assume
Yes.
100% of one or the other?
Yeah, just to be specific, the way most of our bridges, I'm going to say 95% of our bridges are funded for the township system is there's a federal allotment that is allowed to the county, Shelby County. 80% of the construction cost of a bridge is borne by the federal funding. Then the remaining 20% of the bridge, 16% of that, we also get a state funding allotment. 16% is paid by the state funds, and then the remaining 4% is split equally between the county and the townships. So in this particular case, it's kind of unusual. This was on the township line, so the county will pay 2%, their half, and the other 2 townships will split the remaining 2% between themselves, which is 1% each. And we send invoices out, and that's the way that's done.
Couple of things, Alan. First, on this annual report, and you give us one every year, I have to congratulate you and your staff for doing a top-notch professional job on compiling all the data. Secondly, last month on the recent snowstorm that we had, up in my area, we had some complaints, which I understand that's the nature of the beast. When you have a snow event of that part that you're gonna have complaints like that. And I thank you and Stacy for taking time out of your day for meeting with me on that. Looking back, and everybody's got 20/20 vision, would it have been more prudent? I know that you guys started pushing snow that early Monday morning, about 5. Would it have been possible to start pushing snow the night before, or would that have made any difference, or?
I don't think it would have made any difference from the complaints. We talk about it on weekends, Stacy and I. When a snow event occurs on a weekend, first of all, we look at the weather reports. So usually they're pretty good, and so we know it's going to occur. So we prepare. Let's say if the storm occurs on a Sunday, we will prepare on Friday. Basically, we have the trucks ready to go. Now, whether we go out, first of all, I just want to say it's not a matter of using overtime to go out and plow snow. That's not an issue. Plowing snow, in my opinion, is probably not shared by everybody, is our most important function. So if I have to pay overtime to people to do it, I do it. There's no ifs, ands, and buts there. But anyway, so it depends on the snow event. If it's an ice event, in other words, basically an ice storm, there's nothing we can do. So there's no reason to go out there and push ice that we can't push, okay? So if it's a snow event, we can do some good. But if it's a snow event with a lot of wind, we can't do much, because our snow plow will go down the road and it'll be filled in right behind you.
Right.
So that is all discussed. We discuss also if, and this doesn't apply to the one that occurred, but in past years it's applied. If we have a snow event every other day and for weeks and weeks and weeks, you know, the staff needs a break. So I prioritize Monday through Fridays for getting snow removed, because that's when people want to go to school, that's when people want to go to work, more so on weekends. But it has nothing to do with overtime, is what I'm saying. We discussed all of those things. We discussed it in this particular event, and we thought it was the best due to the accumulation and everything, and nighttime, and it's a dangerous work, that we would go out first thing Monday morning. It was about 5 a.m., just like you said. I was going to get into my updates and highlights, something that you're bringing up now. I feel like it's important to have a written policy approved by the county board for snow removal. And I've talked it over with my committee, and we went in depth. I went in depth on our snow policy with the committee on Monday. On what all we do. The policy we currently have in process, I don't believe has ever been approved by the county board. It's something that I implemented 15 years ago based on what I saw as a need to improve 15 years ago. We have done it the same way every year since that time period. But it's really never been approved by the county board. I feel like it's important at this point to get a written policy approved by the county board so that certain areas of the county, it's defendable to people that call in, or county board members that call in to explain why we do what we do. And if something, and maybe it's time to change. I could go on forever about what our policy is. We have 6 snow plow routes. We used to have 5. The public feels that we should salt roads. We don't salt roads. Never have. 15 years ago, I got approval to mix salt with, at that time, cinders, now sand. That only goes on intersections, hills, curves, railroad crossings, and bridges. If we want to change that, we can. But my material that I order my equipment that I have, the staff that I have, are all figured out based on our current snow removal policy during the winter. If we change that, I'll just need to make changes. The other thing on snow removal, just to let you know, the plans for this year's snow removal, how much I'm gonna buy, what equipment I need, what changes I want to make, are made the previous year. You can't, if you want new equipment for this winter, you can't buy it this winter, you gotta buy it last winter. We purchase salt in the quantity that we think we need. That order is put in basically a month from now for next year. Because the state has a purchasing program that we use, that they bid out all the salt for everybody in the state of Illinois, and we get that price. But they want their orders made the year prior. So it's difficult to change in the middle of winter, I guess. The other thing that happens, and it's my decision for the most part, is again, we have a certain amount of material on site that was pre-planned for an upcoming winter. Of course, you don't know how much snow events there are. We've been lucky with snow events year after year, but you don't know how much snow you're going to have. If I have a snow in the middle of December and it lasts 2 weeks, I could have snow for the next 3 months that I have to deal with. So the material that I've ordered the previous year for this year has to last the whole time period. And sometimes I won't order as much. If we had an easy winter last year and we have stockpile material on site, well, maybe I won't order as much for the next winter. Maybe I'm wrong too, because it's an estimate. And long story, too late, I've already given you a long story, but I want to write a policy up. I want to present it to the board and get it approved. I will present it to my committee first. If adjustments need to be made, I know the complaints up around Findlay was an organized effort and it was significant, and there's dissatisfaction there. I am very aware of that. And if the county wants to treat that part of if the county board would like me to treat that part of the county differently from the rest of the county, I need to know that.
Well,
and I can do that. I'm not even a joke. I can do that.
just for the benefit of the rest of the board, I did indeed receive some complaints from people up around Findlay, and I took it upon myself and I went out and drove those roads to make sure what they were telling me was right, wrong, or indifferent. And for the benefit of Alan and his staff, him and his foreman did meet with me for about an hour, and we sat down and talked, and I appreciated that. The bottom line was I found out what some of the problems, concerns were, and I was able to get back with the people that did complain. So,
What was their major complaint?
biggest complaint was the road that goes through Findlay from the bridge out to 128. Now, checking back with your previous foreman, I had been told, of course, when you're getting complaints, I mean, you hear everything. I had one person tell me, he said, Denny, the other foreman that we had did a much better job all the way through Findlay. I happened to run into your previous foreman, Marvin. I sat down and talked to him. He said, Denny, he said, I appreciate the compliment, but he said, the state used to run right through there. And he said, about the time he retired, they stopped doing that. So he said, that's the reason, you know. So
What was the complaint? They slick or what?
the packed snow and.
Oh, that was everywhere. That was everywhere.
And I was talking to one woman, and I asked her, I said, so what are you doing up this time of morning? She said, well, I go to work in Taylorville. I said, did you think about leaving early? And her answer was, I shouldn't be expected to do that. Now,
And when it's packed like that, there's nothing you can do with it, only solid.
Well, part of the issue is the first snowstorm always, for whatever reason, surprises people. They're not used to driving. That's part of the problem.
That is true.
Up in Findlay, I will say this, and Moultrie County, which connects to our county highways, has a policy that they have treated those roads special versus the rest of their county. So when you get off of our road, Shelby County, which again, we treat all our roads the same currently, we can change that. When you drive on our roads and then you go into Moultrie, Moultrie's is cleaned off. They salt the road there to the east and to the north of Findlay. So that's part of the dissatisfaction of the public, and I understand that very well, and I've talked to the Moultrie County engineer, and they have decided to treat that area special versus the rest of their county. So,
Would that be a school route?
well, it's definitely a school route. The road north of, well, let me explain school route first of all. Let's get on the same page here. If you have a child and you live on a road in the country, a school bus comes and gets you. So that, you know, I always jokingly say there's only two types of roads. Those that are school bus routes and those that will, or already school bus routes and those that will become school bus routes. So to me, they're all school bus routes unless there's a closed bridge or something.
Yeah.
The difference up in Findlay, the superintendent called me up there, is that, and this occurs also between Cowden and Herrick, there is a shuttle system that runs north out of Findlay between Findlay and Bethany. So it's a more significant school bus route, and I don't know if that's why Moultrie did it or not, but a lot of the complaints, like he said, was on the east-west road, not the north road. So even if you prioritized that, quote, school bus route, because of the shuttle system, it wouldn't solve the problem in there. Again, we can do something similar to what Moultrie gets more funding than we do, and I went over that with the committee also to show that I looked up the funding, and they get about double the funding we do in motor fuel tax per mile of road. I must say per mile of road.
Also, no storm's the same, they're always different too. Like
So,
that one, it come that little skiff to mist that night and it really got slick after it was packed down.
Yeah, once it gets packed down, there's not a whole lot we can do. I mean, our blades are right on the pavement and they just go over the top. So.
Well, my final comment is I want to thank you again, you and your foreman Stacy, for meeting with me so that I could get back with my constituents. It's one thing to have a complaint in, it's another thing if the elected official does not touch base with them. Again, I was able to do that, so I appreciate it.
Okay, Alan, do you have other stuff then?
Just one other item, combined. Well, our next bid opening will be February 7th for all the oil in the county, for the county and the townships. We'll also have a bid opening for our annual cold mix. We make cold mix on site there. There'll be a bid opening on that same day, February 7th at 9 a.m. at the Highway Department. And there's a few townships that want their rock hauling bid out, and we're going to bid that on February 7th also. The other item I was going to say was I'll be working on a snow removal policy, but I've already gone over that. So.
What's a coal mix? What do you use coal for?
Cold,
Oh,
C-O-L-D.
Okay.
It's actually like a patch mix that we make ourselves because we can make it cheaper than purchasing it.
One thing I wanted to say is this Cotton Herrick Road patching project, you said it's completed, but there's a caveat to that. I'd like you just to tell everybody so it's out in the open.
Absolutely. What page was that?
Well, just page 2.
Oh, page 2. I think there's also a photo in there.
Yes, there is, but I just wanted to bring it to,
Yeah.
everybody would have this.
Right. Cowden Herrick Road project started out a year and a half ago as a patching the road, which the county board was voted to have the revolving loan money.
Pictures on page 10.
Okay, on page 10. And the revolving loan money was voted on to be used for patching the Cowden Herrick Road. That a year and a half ago, the plan was to do that patching and then what's called microsurface over the top of the patching. When we were in the middle of the patching, we found out that the top surface course of that road was very brittle and was basically breaking up, something I was not aware of. So on top of that, the patching did not go real well. It was very rough, and we asked the contractor at their cost to mill out the rough spots, which they've done and has improved. It's not perfect, but they have improved it. But what I have proposed to the committee, and I think I mentioned it at the county board meeting, was that we now mill off the surface of that road for those miles of road and refill with hot mix. I've requested the state to put that in their program. The funding for the reason I have to do that is because we can't afford the funding locally. We use our federal allotment at 80% to pay for that, and then we have some state money that we can use for the remaining 20% for that project. It's estimated at $1.1 million. I have not gotten approval yet from the state to have that done this summer, which is what I would like to do. And I'm working towards that. I've got a letter for Bruce to sign, now that he's the county board chairman, requesting that. I have submitted a program, just to explain that a little bit better. When you want to use federal or state money, you have to program it a couple years in advance. Well, I'm jumping ahead of that, so I'm asking for basically a favor to get me shoved in there. That the district only has a certain amount of funds, and there's 13 other counties asking similar requests. So that's what's going on there.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Alan? Alan, is that it?
I think so.
I'm like Dean.
Did I spend more time than you, by the way? I was trying to.
Good report.
Okay, public buildings, Dale Weatherall?
Hopefully this won't be as long, Alan. But I do have 5 things I'd like to go over. The first thing is requesting approval for the maintenance contract with D&M Electrical. We're going to put that on hold right now. Sheriff's Department on their generator over, they use Bodine. We was hoping to get, maybe work with Bodine and D&M and see who would be the cheapest on doing both. So we did get a bid back from D&M, and it was $500 for an annual. Plus $360 if we was going to do it quarterly, but it also said in there that they would be doing, they would not charge the $360 if we did the annual. That's the first thing there, so I don't really need approval for that yet. I gave you an update on the generator. It is hooked up. It's ready to go. All we have to do is run a gas line from over by the jail over to the generator here. CIPS is in charge of that. They said they was going to do it January the 20th. That's a good day for here because I think everything's shut down in the courthouse. We was hoping to change some of this electrical stuff out. I'll pass this around. You can see this here. Here's the connectors in the box that they throw on the outside out here. Because of water that was coming in, because the lines on the outside, I'll pass this around here too. They're supposed to be bright and shiny like this here on the outside. They've been hooked up wrong on the top. They've been collecting water. Water's been standing in here. When they cut them to make the connections out here, they had a couple of water run out of the lines here. What that does for people that don't know about electrical stuff, when you get water in a connection like this here, it starts heating up, creating, that's what causes this dark color on the outside out here. It's called oxidation. After you get so much the heat build up, it starts loosening up these connections right here, which in turn creates more heat. And then you start getting arc, and then you get a fire. We don't know how long this has been going on. We just made aware of it when we got the generator put in. It's something that needs to be looked into and done. I'll show you, pass that around. Now this wire right here is $9 a foot, so it is expensive to replace.
He's got $9.
I did ask him about us You know, like Gary coming over here with his trailer and picking up the wire, and we take it and recycle it back for the county so we'd have some money back. When he found out we was gonna do this here, he lowered it, $1,300 for, you know, the wire that we was going to salvage out. So I was pleased about that right there.
What was the size of that generator?
This is 100 kW right here. He said it'd be more than big enough to run that. Also, while I'm talking about that, when they did come this last time for a meeting with us, he had another motor there that somebody else needed the generator part off, but we have the motor. Alan, did they bring it out there to the county?
Yeah, they did. They brought it out. They brought it out.
Well, he gave us a motor that we could use, you know, if one was down at either place there or something. So we've got one in storage out at the highway department out there, so. He said he didn't need it sitting around. Like I said, CIPS is supposed to do the gas line here on the 20th. The lights on the island out here were not working. The guy called me this morning and said he wasn't made aware of that till yesterday. He said he's checked into it, and it is the timer that's shot over there on there. He said he needs to get that checked out. He was going to do that today. So if you haven't seen the lights on over there on the island, that's why. Also, people's been worried about the clock up here on the towers. Sheriff said the parts have been made, and they've been giving, or supposed to be given to the Hatfield that we have a contract with. It's maintenance on the clock. So that's supposed to be taken care of too, so in the near future. Okay, now to the money parts that you guys have been waiting on here. The new weatherhead, and that's what we call the line coming up here, is the weatherhead, the entrance and everything for this here to re-hook up. Take that other one down. It started out at $16,922. We got 2 deductions from that. One was for deducting the use of the old lugs, which is what I'm passing around here, and cleaning those up. So if we don't have to have the new lugs and everything, that'll be a $1,200 savings right there. To deduct for the old scrap wire, which would be after they pull that old mast down, and that wire, it's got water in it, that's $1,350. So with those 2 credits on there, it would be $14,372 for a new entrance. Now, he did suggest at the time that we put a surge protector on there. I do want to make you known that there is kind of a surge protector built into our new generator, that if it drops down to 95% below capacity,
10% fluctuation.
10% fluctuation, either way, the generator will kick in. So we do have that on there. But he said he has seen, the surge protector is like a box and electricity goes through it. He said, I think it's filled with like a silica sand or something. And if a big charge comes through, the sand, he said, I've seen it one time that where it just crystallized the whole sand and made it into a piece of glass. So he said he would recommend putting a surge protector on.
Especially with the amount of computers we now have in the system.
And that would add $1,083. So the total I'm asking for us to pass is, that the committee said that they would recommend, is $15,455 for the surge protector and for the new entrance. I so move.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Earl makes a motion. Do I have a second? Dale? Okay, Gary Patterson. I have a question. This $15,455, is it budgeted?
There is, Jessica said we probably had about 19,000 left in the kit.
Capital improvement?
Courthouse maintenance.
Courthouse maintenance, okay.
So that's,
One comment, and Dale's done a good job.
Very good.
When we had the fire in 2005, when this system was put in, there's problems out there, very complicated problems, like when they put the large conduit upside the building, they put it in upside down, so the bells are sticking up with the next tile going in, and water is going down into those. When they came off the power line to the building into the weatherhead, you bring the wire down and you go past the weatherhead and then back up to the weatherhead, is what it should be, so that water on that line drips. They didn't. They come straight off, went straight into Weatherhead, so it funnels the water right down inside that box. That's the reason for the corrosion. And our electrician said, I can't tell you it's tomorrow or 20 years from now. But he said, with my doing work, he said, I want it known what the problems are so that it's not back on me. And it is a serious problem. And it could very easily lead to another fire, like we had in last time.
Gary did bring up about the fire. Either Sheriff or Jessica checked into it, and when we had that fire, it cost the county $132,000, or the insurance company $132,000 to rectify that problem. So,
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the board, on the floor. Do all those in favor of saying of approval of this weatherhead and surge protector for $15,455 say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay.
Nay. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I meant aye. I just had a question. Was it 14,555 or 15? What?
15,455.
With the surge protector and everything.
15,455.
Okay. No, that was my only question. No, I'm an aye. I didn't want to forget to ask the question.
Dale, any further from the building committee?
no, I think I had about 5 things that I wanted to bring up about the clock and the light across over there.
Still got 4 more minutes.
Chairman updates is our next contract. I don't really have any updates today. I guess the excitement was the elections. Moving on, chairman appointments. We have a vacancy on the Road and Bridge Committee. And I would like to ask Bobby Orman to be on that committee. Would you be able to be on a committee that meets on Friday morning and Monday morning?
I'd have to decline that.
Okay. And I'm gonna leave that committee open for the time being. Levon Cheney is currently on the 708 board as a citizen at large, and now that she's on the board, we have a limit of 2 board members that can be on the 708 board. Denny.
And I am going to resign that position.
Okay, so Denny has resigned the position, leaving us an opening, and I'd like to recommend Levon Cheney for the 708 board.
I'll make that motion.
Denny makes a motion, Barb seconds it. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Okay. I've been thinking about this, the whole personnel committee, human resources, has not gone real well for the last year. I think that Eric is on the right track. I do believe that she and Jessica have both been to, the SERMA stuff, and they're right. However, I think that the decision falls with the board to approve payrolls, and I want to take a good look at our human resources department. I'd like to form a human resources committee task force to look into actually forming a human resources policy, getting our payroll policy consistent throughout the county, and determining whether or not payroll should be in the treasurer's department or exterior, another department. I think Jessica is involved in payroll as well, is that correct?
I am not involved in payroll, no.
You don't, okay. I'd like to appoint a committee, and in putting this committee together, I may change some other committees around. On the Human Resources Committee, I will be on it. I'd like Kay Carney to be on it. I'd like David Switz to be on it. I'd like Brian Kaufman to be on it. And I'd like Terry Metzger to be on it. I'd also like Danielle Culberson to be on it, and Rob McCall as representatives of employers in the county. I believe Danielle is the president of ASME.
Lisa Sweeney.
Lisa Sweeney, okay, then I want Lisa Sweeney on it, excuse me. Danielle, are you not involved in the board?
I stepped down as the vice president.
Okay. Then it'd be Lisa Sweeney, and I'd like Rob McCall on it. With Erica and Jessica as advisors. Do I have a motion to approve that slate?
Bruce, that's not on the agenda.
Do I have to put it on the
I think
agenda
it
for
needs to
next
be on the
month?
agenda in order to take action on it.
Okay.
I mean,
I'd
I
like to
appreciate
make
that individuals and everything.
I'd
that
like to
can
make that
pull that
an
over.
appointment for the next, like to consider that. And in so doing, Kay is currently
Did you hit nominate 7?
6, 5, 7, yes, including myself.
Okay.
7, including myself. And we'll discuss that at the next board meeting. Assuming that carries, Kay Kearney is currently the chairman of the Law Enforcement Committee. I'd like to remove her from the Law Enforcement Committee because she needs the time. And at that point, I'd like to appoint Gary Patterson as the chairman of the Law Enforcement Committee and David Switz to fill Kay's position. That will be on the agenda for next month. The Budget Committee, I'm going to leave open for now, and I'll leave the Road and Bridge Committee open until next month. I have no correspondence. Do we have any public body comment?
I have a question.
Terry, go ahead.
Yeah, I've been here 3 years now. We've never filmed before, and I'm sure it's legal because we wouldn't do anything if it wasn't legal, right?
Amen.
And why is it here and who's going to use it?
Well, it's a public body meeting, and I believe this is the Douglas County Watchdog Group that's filming us.
I can answer that if you would like me to.
Go ahead and introduce yourselves and answer that.
I'm John Kraft with the Edgar County Watchdogs. You had the wrong county.
Edgar County, excuse me.
Public meetings are required to be open to the public, and they also require that the public body permit recording the meetings by video or audio. So you can't even have, that's the reason why I brought my cell phone in here too, because you can't even have your meetings in a building that prohibits cameras or cell phones, because then we can't come in and record. What we're going to do with it, I don't know yet. We typically post it online so people can watch it. We're not going to be at every meeting. We just showed up to this meeting because we were interested in some of the topics that were possibly going to be discussed. Is anything else? No, you're welcome. Yeah, glad to have you. Kirk Allen's here too. He's co-founder of the Edgar County Watchdog. That wasn't my public comment though. That was an answer.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then,
I just had one question. When you were doing the committee appointments, you skipped over the budget?
for the time being.
That'll be next month also
Yes.
then? Okay.
Come on up front and introduce yourself. I forgot your name again.
That's okay.
It's,
Jeremy Williams.
yeah, okay, I should know it by
Thank
now.
you. That's okay, sometimes I forget to. I was here last month. I want to thank you again for the opportunity to come by and speak today. I'm here on behalf of the Illinois Separation, which is an advisory referendum that I'm trying to have put on this November's ballot. It's just to put the advisory referendum on the ballot and give the people an opportunity to express their opinion, voice their opinion at the ballot box. That's all it does. I did hand out some packets of information. I know some people were able to take some and some weren't. I wanted to touch base and check in. I wanted to let you know I'm continuing to drive the petition. I may be skinnier next time I'm here because I'm walking doors, which is fun. I wanted to see if anybody had any questions from the packet of information that I handed out last time. If there were any questions or concerns or anything that I might be able to speak to.
All it really is that you just want to have permission to put it on the ballot for the voters to decide.
Yeah, it's just an advisory referendum, it's non-binding, it doesn't hold anybody's feet to the fire or anything like that. I just want it to be on the November 3rd ballot. It's an initiative that's being pursued by many counties in the state, practically all counties in the state. There are people out there collecting petition signatures. This is already on the ballot in, I think, about 8 different counties. And I actually think some county boards were going to address it 2 days ago and some yesterday. So that number may have changed in the last few days. But it's already on the ballot in several counties. It's just an advisory referendum so people can have a voice. And that's really all I'm asking, is that at some point in the near future, we have till about summertime to do this. So it's not like it's urgent. Don't have to do it next time or anything. But it's just to put it on the ballot and let the people vote yea or nay at the ballot box is all it is.
Jessica, does he need so many signatures or something? to be able to put-
He should know per statute what he's required with a petition.
What I need is one of 2 things: county board approval to place it on the ballot, or 731 signatures from registered voters in this county. And I'm working on both.
Mr. Chairman, since the gentleman was here last time, I've talked to a lot of people in my area and around the county even, and they said, yeah, we'd like to say something about it, separate us, you know, so it'd be good to let our people have an opportunity to say something too. Thank you for your hard work.
Thank you.
Isn't there a piece of legislation that was introduced in the General Assembly concerning this?
There was. It's along the same lines.
And what's the difference?
That I can't speak to. I know more about what I'm doing, and I know less about that. I know that they're related. They're in regards to the same kind of thing. But I'm not the one that introduced that, and I'm not the authority to speak on it.
I was just wondering why we need that on the ballot if it's already in the General Assembly in the works.
Well, I don't know if that's a binding resolution. Can Brad speak to that?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to address the
Brad,
question.
go ahead.
So what happened back in February was HR 101. It's a resolution, and it's calling for Congress, it's urging Congress to separate or make Chicago into its own state. Okay, today in the state of Illinois, there's 2 movements that are seeking to separate from Chicago. One is the advisory referendum path that Jeremy's a part of, that's doing a petition drive to get signatures to place the initiative on the ballot, or by county board resolution. You guys can do that. The other pathway is New Illinois, and New Illinois looks at the constitutional pathway to get that done with the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the Declaration of Independence. That's about a 6-step process to get that done. Okay, now it's a resolution, and it takes at least 60 co-sponsors on that resolution to move that forward. Currently, there's not that many on that. Okay, but it's just bringing attention. It's been done times before in the General Assembly. It always gets offered up. But never before has this resolution gotten as much traction as it's received this year. Okay, so there's just this growing disconnect, if you will, between the urban and the rural parts of the state of Illinois. To make a short story longer, back in 1964, there was a U.S. Supreme Court case called Reynolds versus Sims that forced us into a democracy. Currently, the U.S. Constitution guarantees us a small r Republican form of government. We are a constitutional Republican. Well, Reynolds versus Sims has changed the way apportionment was done in selecting our representatives. Okay, so that's a discussion really for another day. Basically, U.S. at the time, Senator Everett Dirksen back in about 1968 said, under Reynolds versus Sims, this is going to allow large population centers to control the state. That's what's happened in New York, that's what's happened in Chicago or in Illinois, that's what's happened in New York, that's what's happened in Nevada, that's what's happened in Washington State, is the large population centers are controlling the agenda for the rest of the state. Chicago can carve themselves in and out of any legislation they want to, but when it comes to matters of life and matters of marriage, matters of minimum wage, matters of allowing us to what we can do with our own property to mine oil or mine coal and to drill oil, they impose their way on the rest of the entire state. That's why this effort continues to grow. Gun control is another issue. But it's really about the lack of representation because of this U.S. Supreme Court case that was forced on the entire United States back in '64 that has forced us into this state. This effort that Jeremy is a part of in the state of Illinois, there's efforts in California that's been going on for almost 4 years. There's a growing effort in Washington State. There's a new effort in Nevada. There's a solution that's being proposed in New York State and maybe others. But this is an effort that's going on all across the nation because of what's happened in the last 50 years.
Well, there's other states that's going the same route too. It's not just Illinois. Your direction basically takes a little power of Chicago out of controlling whether we get to speak our mind down here.
Yeah, well, it would take Chicago's influence away.
Yeah.
And to the point that Brad made about the Supreme Court case, you know, at the federal level, our representation in the House consists of representing population. And in the Senate, it's 2 per state, regardless of population. But in Illinois, the House is also comprised of population, but the Senate districts are comprised of 2 House districts. So in a sense, the Senate districts are comprised by representation, or I'm sorry, by population. It's not a senator a county or a senator every 2 counties. You have a small district that's made up by a populace and a bigger district that's also made up of a populace. That's why we have a democratic form of government in Illinois in a republic like the United States. Our state government does not represent how the Constitution of the country is set up. And that's why representation is so disproportionate. It's because even our senators are elected by a certain pocket of population at the state level and not equal representation like the federal Senate is made up. I hope that explains a little
Jeremy
bit.
gave a great point there, and what we need, basically in the United States, our congressmen and women are elected by population, but regardless of the population of the state, every state has 2 U.S. senators. What we need in Illinois, still elect your representation by population, but give a county a senator, a state senator. That changes the picture. But right now, under the system of Reynolds versus Sims in '64, the rewrite of the state constitution in '70, the cutback amendment of '82, this has concentrated power into a small geographical area. And that's the issue at hand. And so this just is a common sense, this is a nonpartisan issue that should give credence to more people's voice in these matters.
Okay. With that, I'm gonna call Jeremy. You've had enough floor time. Jeremy's made some good presentations here. You know, there's nothing on, we're not gonna pass a resolution today. You're all board members, I'm the chairman. Whether or not we wanna take this another step, I need advice. I've got plenty of people, you know my phone numbers. We'll go from there. Thank you, Jeremy.
Do I need to come up there?
I appreciate it. In the past, we've had people standing out there, and I think that most of the people get your back.
Excuse me.
Well, I mean, maybe we'll move your seat. I'm the one that's had the back to them all this time.
At least I'm not up here when there's a judge.
No, I'm just kidding. You don't want to be there then.
So I'm John Kraft. I'm the co-founder of the Edgar County Watchdogs, and follow on to what I said a little while ago. I understand that some people are reluctant to come to your meetings and bring their cell phones with them because of the sign that's outside, and I would appreciate it if you would put another sign that says, you know, hey, if you're coming to a public meeting, feel free to bring your cell phones. It's on the agenda to shut your cell phones off, but any member of the public should be, well, they are permitted to bring their cell phone in here without being questioned by the security that's downstairs if they're coming to a public meeting. They should just say, I'm coming to the county board meeting, and I'll bring my cell phone. we didn't get questioned today. A couple months ago, we did when we showed up to a electoral board hearing. But we still got in with our cameras and our cell phones. The other issue is, and the county board is not, well, I don't know any other word, but guilty of this. They're not. I've submitted a FOIA, several FOIAs, one to the county sheriff for videos from the security system. I got maybe 1/10 of the videos that should have been provided on a hard drive, and the county paid, or the sheriff paid $600 or $700 to get the videos, and he should have went and got all his money back if that's the only videos that were provided to him. And then I understand somebody resigned instead of from their employment, instead of, you know, having a video being shown of people working when they weren't here working. I appreciate you guys have started clock in, clock out with your employees. And the other issue is if and this is again with the sheriff, Kirk, I believe, submitted a FOIA request a few days ago. The county or whatever public body or entity receives a FOIA request has 5 business days to respond. They can extend that for another 5 business days for reasons listed in the Freedom of Information Act. But what they can't do is just ignore it and say, oh, well, my person's not here, I don't have to comply until they get around and figure out they have time to respond. You can't do that. You subject yourselves and the county and the taxpayers to lawsuits. State's attorney has to defend what is indefensible. A non-reply to a FOIA, there's no defense for that. Even if it is during the Christmas break or a school district during the summer break, there's no defense for that. So,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask the gentleman a question.
Yeah.
So if we've been doing something wrong for 30 years, it's okay to keep doing it or not do it?
no,
Kind
you
of
gotta
being
fix it. If it's wrong, you gotta fix it. Laws change, number
Yes,
one.
Very true.
And that's something we hear all the time, unfortunately.
Yes.
Well, we've been doing this forever. Yeah, well, that's not what the law says.
Very good. Thank you,
Think
sir.
about changes. Thanks.
Does the state answer you when you have to write them?
Yes, they do.
They do? I
And
heard
they
they
answer
did.
within 5 days generally.
The state does?
Yes, except for the state police. That's a different story. But they're still required to. They just don't do it.
But you don't go after them?
Yeah, we do.
Kirk
You
Allen
get
has
anywhere?
the floor.
We sue them. Yeah, we get the records.
Thank you. How's everybody doing this morning?
Hungry.
Long, hungry. All right, I get it. I will do my best to share my information. Mine's like a parachute. It works best when it's open. I'm a messenger. After a career in the military, I learned to ask 2 questions, and I ask them all the time. Says who, and what proof? We hear a lot of things, and the first thing we do is go to validate what we hear. We do that both verbally and when we see things in writing. We were made aware of a recent discussion, I believe it was during one of the committee meetings regarding coroners, and some of the comments that came out during that in the audio I'd like to address. But before I do that, how many board members have actually read the Illinois compiled statutes for the county board members' powers and duties?
In the process.
That's 55, correct?
I've got
It's the
UCCI.
55.
Okay, great point. You got a book from,
UCCI,
okay.
county handbook for UCCI.
Okay, those are guides, and I can assure you both county, municipal, and township handbooks throughout we have exposed do not follow state law in their recommendations. That's why I asked the question, have you read the powers and duties of your position? And the reason it's an important question, you're the state's attorney, I'm assuming. Are you busy?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It's typical, because we've always done it this way, to default to one legal counsel, your state's attorney, for everything. How up are you on all of the local government laws for the county? It's tough There's so many and they change. It's one of those, we'll write the question down and they'll have to get back to you. My recommendation is get back to you in writing. That way you have something that's documented that nobody can say, well, you didn't understand what I said. Document it. With that, how many have read the statutes applicable to the coroners? How many have read the statutes applicable to the treasurer or the clerk? The reason I ask, it's important as a cohesive body. Our job as watchdogs, we're a nonprofit organization, and our job is not just to come in and expose everything you're doing wrong. It's to fix problems. We're going to expose some problems, and we hope that you fix them. Those are good stories that get to be written. What we find is, more often than not, we don't know what each other's supposed to be doing, what they can and can't do. Says who with what proof. My suggestion is read the law and only do what the law permits you to do. You can't do it if it's not in the law. I say this because we find counties all over the state that are not following the law. If you're not following it and other counties turn to you and say, well, that's how Shelby County does it, guess what? Now you have another county doing the same thing you're doing. It's incorrect and it perpetuates itself. The audio of recent meeting, the concerns that were raised, this is strictly from a pure professional standpoint. And I don't know any of you people, so I don't know the people within this. I've been told the names of them, but I've not been able to verify because I haven't talked to those individuals yet. One of them yells, "Shut up," to the treasurer. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I whoop my kid's butt when he would tell people to shut up. Okay? That's just uncalled for in my opinion. It's just my opinion. You may disagree, not a problem. And I will fight to the death to respect your right to that opinion. Another one was a woman's voice. Give her hours whether worked or not. Turn it in anyway. No. You get paid for what you worked. You don't get paid in advance, and you don't do those things with pay.
Where do you get your
One of the
information? Who gives you your information?
We have multiple sources, and those are confidential for the reasons to prevent repercussion.
So if it's open, if you're given things from an open meeting, why isn't that open?
The audio it's a public record.
I'm saying,
It'll be
why
published.
isn't the person who tells you this stuff open?
Because the law protects those people under the First Amendment. I can give you the case law to back that up. One of the other questions that was on that audio was what I heard, I believe you say today. You have no right to question. Well, I'll tell you what. You better start questioning.
Amen to that.
And I'm going to go through why. I heard one of you make the argument the auditor never found a problem, nor the IRS, and they would have caught it. This is the lamest argument I've ever heard. Oh, we've never had anybody tell us it's wrong, or we've never been exposed, or the auditors never found it. To use the failure of identifying a problem in the past as an excuse to not fix what has been identified as a problem is why we have the mess we do in this country. There appears to be more interest in protecting the status quo rather than fixing what's clearly broken, and I will go into those details. Case in point, Dixon, Illinois. How many are familiar with what happened in Dixon, Illinois? What happened for 20 years? Clean audits, clean IRS reports. Nobody knew a thing, and that woman stole $53.4 million. Nobody asked questions. 55 ILCS deals specifically, orders to be filled up and authorized. The county treasurer shall not countersign any county order before the same is filled up, nor until she has examined the records of the county board and ascertained that the issuing of such order is warranted thereby. You're asking a treasurer to just blindly do things. I can tell you, case law doesn't support that. She has an obligation to question the validity of things she's putting her name on. And where that comes from as a township supervisor, I was asked to sign checks. I was the sole signer. And we had people come in, it was Rides Mass Transit was one of them. They sent us an invoice. And I think your state's attorney will probably say, I don't think that's real legal. When we dove into it, I said, well, why am I paying this invoice? Well, that's your portion that you're supposed to pay because we provide transportation in your county or in your township. So I looked up the statutes related to their jobs, their powers, and their duties. They're fully funded through the federal funding system, And that's where they get their money, and they charge for rides. They have no authority to send a bill out to townships to pay them, but they were doing it over and over and over. And I said, I'm not paying it, because it's illegal. I found no statutory power to put my name on that check. We stopped paying it. Never heard another word from them. Many other townships stopped paying them too. And guess what? Mass transit still functions. Payment of money. No money or funds shall be paid out of any county treasury except in accordance with an order of the county board or when payment is specially authorized by law to be made. Identifying that it's a legal payment, you have to ask questions. That shouldn't be a problem. Duties of a coroner. Part of that audio tape, and we'll publish the audio tape so everybody can hear what was said for those that weren't at it. Compensation of deputies. We heard all the discussion of the deputies that are there, when they're working, when they're not working, and it was amazing to listen to. Questions that were in there, the answers are right in the statutes. That's why I asked if you read them. Subject to budgetary limitations established by the county board. You folks have that power within that. Section 3-30, 3040, same county code. The appointment shall be in writing and signed by the coroner. Deputies' compensation shall be determined by the county board. You guys set the compensation. The question there was, well, that office can do whatever they want. No, they can't. It says right in the statute they can't. It specifically spells out the county board's supposed to be doing it. Nowhere does it talk about contracting with people to be deputies. That was one of the subjects. Well, we'll just make them independent contractors, give them 1099s. No, they're employees of the county. Talk to your insurance company because you'll see other liabilities about what you can and can't do in that regard. An example of such powers to contract employees you'll find in county airport statutes, fire protection districts. There's several others that the statute specifically says you have the right to contract someone for the management of. As a fire chief, I can be contracted to do the job. Airport managers, same way. The county code does not give such power to a coroner. Now, you mentioned the ETSB. ETSB is the Emergency Telephone System Board. That's why the Edgar County Watchdogs started back in 2011. And I could go on for hours on that, and I won't. However, there's some points that came here today that you may not be aware of. I don't know if your ETSB coordinator, director, whatever you call them, has a contract, but there's no provision for ETS boards to contract someone to do their job. We've stopped it in other counties. When you read the statutes, they have no such power. What's interesting with that statute, and what you're seeing right now, is a progressive failure of the system being done properly. What is the Emergency Telephone System Board? They take what type of calls? Anybody? Emergency calls. That's their sole purpose. Is it a crime to make a false 911 call?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. We have 911 centers all over the place charging other entities for non-emergency calls. Well, why are they dispatching non-emergency calls? That's not their job. Their job is to dispatch emergency calls. I'm required to keep a non-emergency phone number in the fire department. So when they get non-emergency calls, they should be telling them you need to contact your local police, fire, or whatever agency it is if it's a non-emergency. Well, ETSB, the whole system has gotten so out of control, many of them are broke. In 2014, they passed a law that the state now takes it over. State police is in charge. The ETSB statute sunsets. It's done. No more statute that the county has any control over 911 effective December 31st of this year. How many knew that? Okay? And that's an important thing to know because you folks are talking about making a decision of going into intergovernmental agreements with 2 other counties for something that you've only got 11 months left or 11 and a half months. And that whole statute, that whole system is now going to be in the control of the state police, and it's their problem. Because they're the ones now that get to figure out how to fund everything, not the county coffers.
That's good to know.
Another example of, we've always done it this way, and we found this from reading this one set of minutes. There was action taken by the county board to hire an attorney. Your state's attorney is your legal counsel. That office is a legal representative of all county officers, and you cannot pay a private attorney to represent the county board on matters. Such an action violates Ashton v. Cook, which is the well-established case law on it, and I'll read directly from it. quote, "The law is well settled that when the Constitution or the laws of the state create an office, state's attorney, prescribe the duties of its incumbent and fix the compensation, no other person or board except by action of the legislature has the authority to contract with private individuals to expend public funds for the purpose of performing the duties which were imposed upon the officer." We're paying your state's attorney, the state pays. That's your legal counsel. Why should the taxpayers be paying for another attorney? They shouldn't. It violates case law. It violates state law. But you've been doing it for, I think this resolution, been many, many years. I don't have the date on this one, but it's been for quite some time. From past minutes, and these are things to help streamline. That's why it's so important to read your powers and duties. There's been, this is a quote from your minutes, there's been several questions on the minimum and maximum salaries of multi-township assessors. The maximum salary is $15,000 with no minimum. How many are familiar with multi-townships, multi-township assessors? Does the county board have any input whatsoever on multi-township assessors or township assessors? None. I don't even know why this was a discussion for a county board meeting, but not only is it not a place for a county board meeting, the information is 100% wrong. The statute does not say anything about this county board setting those limits. Right out of the township, or the revenue code, which is established, each multi-township board of trustees shall set the salary of its multi-township assessor. So why that became an issue in the county board meeting is beyond me. Another one, and I just got the resolution today, and this is back to says who with what proof, and I'll close out on this. This was in your minutes. Sheriff Mike Miller presented a resolution for the board's approval that would allow the court to collect a $10 fee, which would then be put into a fund for inmate medical expenses. And it cites a statute, and that's important. It cited a statute. I had a place to go. Okay? I read that statute. I read the resolution this morning. And within the resolution, it specifically says, whereas 730 ILCS 125:17 further provides that a county shall be entitled to a $10 fee of each conviction or order of supervision for a criminal violation other than a petty offense or business offense, and that such fee shall be taxed as cost collected from the defendant, if possible, upon conviction of entry, blah, 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 blah. I challenge any of you, I'll buy your dinner, show me where it says that in the statute, because it doesn't. It was a resolution that was drafted as a feel-good way to get some more money. And the way the statute reads, if the individual has a medical expense, you have a right to get reimbursed from that individual's expense. If you got convicted, I'm not trying to single you out by any means, and you never needed a medical expense, right now you'd get charged that $10. But the law is designed as a reimbursement method, not as a carte blanche, we're going to charge everybody. And that's why we go back to the actual statutes and we read it, we apply case law, and we bring it to your attention in hopes of, fix it. That's it. Fix it. But when it doesn't get fixed, we'll be back. Because that's what we do. Because the taxpayers are on the hook. I don't know how many, and this is recoverable. The fees that you're paying for a private attorney is all recoverable in a civil suit. That money should have never been authorized, ever. And it's because nobody's reading the statutes and applying the case laws to know you can or can't do it. We do what we've always done because that's the way we've always done it. As a new board member, I beg of you, read the statutes, ask the tough questions. Anytime you need advice, get it in writing. The question was asked about video, and I'm glad you asked it. How many have taken your Open Meetings Act training? Okay, the answer to that question is in that training. But we go online and we zip through the test because, gosh, it's such a burden. Well, the answers are there. We just have to go back and refresh ourselves on them.
93 pages.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, before he leaves, I got a question that he mentioned a statement way in the beginning about a board member hollered, "Shut up," would that be classified as workplace violence? Could it be?
Could have been, and it
Well,
was.
let me answer that if I may, Chairman. That's a great question, and what I would recommend to you as a local government accountability organization would be to talk with your legal counsel and have your legal counsel provide you the legal answer to that question, because I'm not here to answer legal questions.
Okay.
Even though it was well deserved.
It doesn't matter.
I'm answering his question.
And then let me have the floor. It does not matter. I was the board member. I was out of line, and it shouldn't have happened. I won't again. But it nevertheless happened, and I apologize for it, Erica. I apologized after the meeting, and I was out of line.
And if I may, Chairman, to interrupt, thank you. That's how things should work. Seriously, it's so simple. We get so wrapped up in emotional and my way, their way, left, right, liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican. You know what? I go down to the restaurant, I don't know who's sitting next to me. I really don't. But I know when I pull out my wallet, it's affecting me just like it's affecting everybody else everywhere I go. And right now, in one reading of one set of minutes, I've identified more illegal spending than you can imagine. And it needs to stop.
Did you
Yes,
do
ma'am.
this for every county?
Pardon?
Did you do this for every county?
Ma'am, I've been to more county board meetings than I can shake a stick at.
So everybody in the state's kind of not doing anything right?
It's actually, there's a lot of different areas they do things different, and it's back to the point I made. When one county does something, a neighboring county will turn to them and say, well, what are they doing? And it becomes a pattern. Well, they're doing it, so it must be okay. And nobody's asking that tough question is, well, does the law really let us do that? And a case in point, in DuPage County, you guys set your compensation 180 days before your term, or before a term begins. You only get what's on that document, nothing else. We had uncovered other benefits, health care benefits, car allowances, all these other perks that they were getting that were never in the resolution. Well, they'd always done it that way because the neighboring county did it too. Now, they corrected it. They've stopped it. They redid the resolution. It went into effect for the next term, and they have addressed it. That's all we're asking, is to address it when it's identified. But from the township level all the way up, I don't care where we go, it's easy to find things wrong. The tough part is to find the willingness to fix it. I can't believe how resistant people are to fixing it by creating excuses to justify what we did. You know what? It is what it is. Just fix it.
Mr. Chairman, when I took an oath, just as the good lady did today, defend Shelby County. I care what other counties, I don't care about them other counties. This is our home county. This is the one we worry about. If we're doing it right or wrong, and we need to be making it right, I don't care if every county around us winds up in jail, at least keep ourselves out of it.
Do we go through Gina then on almost everything we do?
Yes. If it needs to be a legal action, yes.
Sometimes it's how it's presented as to whether you dig in your heels or not, but if Gina's gonna say everything we should or shouldn't do, it'd be a different story.
That's why she needs to be here, Barb. That's why I said we need legal
She is
representation.
here.
Just like the example she set for us today. When the chairman started making a motion, she said we need to hold off to next month.
And Mr. Baker, I mean, I missed 2 meetings last year in 2019 because I had jury trials going on during the time of the county board meeting. Otherwise, I'm here. So it kind of seemed like I was getting the impression that you didn't think I am. I am.
Well, you need to be out here when we can see you and the public see you. That way they know that you're representing us. That's all. When you're in a closet,
If I could
come on in the
address that, I've got a
closet.
real simple solution.
Go ahead.
It's a great question. I understand your perspective on it. The one thing that is unique with this versus other public bodies is she represents you, but she also represents the people.
Yeah.
And the criminal side of that is, I wouldn't want any part of that. I can tell you what we've done and what we've seen other entities do. We would use the reference books, but we would sit around as a board and we literally would pull out the suggested guidelines that the county, I forget the name of it that you referenced, but the UCCI book or the TOI book for townships or municipal book, and we would literally look up this topic that we were discussing or having a problem with and say, well, how do you read that? How do you read that? Well, the law says this. Are we in agreement? If we're not, hey, let's draft a question up and then send it to the state's attorney based on the discussion you've already had.
That way, she's not blind to all of the things you've already looked at and considered. And it really does streamline it. Because more often than not, if you do nothing but depend on one person to answer all your questions, do you make mistakes? We all do. And in that process, there's no guarantee that she's going to give you the exact accurate answer, because there might be some case law that she didn't catch. Or something that just popped up from somewhere else that's been identified. There's a lot of information out there, there really is.
And I think, Mr. Allen, you didn't specifically say this, but I think you raised kind of a good point. If you guys as a committee get together and figure out what the question even is, because sometimes the way the question is phrased to me, I may answer a certain way, but
Right.
if, you know, once I find out certain facts or whatever, I may answer it differently.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
And we also pay the state's attorney appellate prosecutor. I mean, do we have the option to use them for things that she might be in conflict with? They always used to negotiate the union contracts.
Well, the appellate, I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with the appellate prosecutor and what they can and can't be involved in. I mean, most counties do that because that can be a huge savings when you are conflicted and they have to take it over. What was happening now with your current hiring of someone to do your labor relations, there's no provision for that. I mean, the law and the case law is crystal clear. It's an inappropriate expenditure of taxpayer money.
Would you entertain a motion to it?
I second it.
I have
That
a
was
motion
quick.
to adjourn.
Well, no, I gotta
Second
read
on the
this.
table.
I gotta read this.
Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to assess mileage and per diem for the January meetings, to approve paying the bills / payroll as reviewed by the committees, and the keyword there is reviewed, and adjourn until the next regular meeting to be held on February 13th.
I have a question.
That's not on the agenda.
There were four bills in question from the committee. What happens with those 4 bills that were in question?
I think we need to have a meeting to see and to hear what can and can't be done.
So you want, those 4 bills will be held, well, I guess actually 5, those 5 bills will be held until the board makes a decision for payment on those, correct?
Well, they're not on the agenda, so we probably can't talk about it, can we?
We can talk about it.
The
just
bills
can't
are on it.
Okay.
Let's get it on the agenda for next month.
What bills?
Find out what
So
those
those
4
bills
bills
be
are.
paid or
What are the 4
No, the
bills?
bills will not be, the
What are
bills
the
will
4
have to be
bills?
held. There was a bill to reimburse an employee for a Christmas dinner. There was a bill to reimburse a commander for a Christmas dinner. There were 2 bills for Christmas dinner reimbursements, and then there was a bill for a breakfast.
Were there agendas, were the meetings held?
Yeah, were there agendas or were they?
There was no notice sent out.
I have received no agendas or meetings.
Those bills will be, they were questioned. Go ahead, Gary.
I asked the question yesterday, is this illegal to pay them? This dealt with a rescue team. They had a Christmas dinner and bought steaks. I'm on the rescue committee, and believe me, our members deserve everything they can get as far as appreciation. But that wasn't my question. I will stand behind the men, and I hated to say no, but I voted no on it, simply because I could not get an answer, and this has come up on several occasions, and it gets shoved off, we'll change it for the next time. But my response we got back was, we've always done it. And I appreciate what these gentlemen do. And if they're after me, I'm gonna hate them just as much as anybody else. But I do appreciate what they do. And we've got a lot of things that I'm having to make moves on and votes on that I'm gonna start voting no more because of just exactly what's going on.
It sounds to me like on the 4 bills in question, you need to refer that to Gina.
The committee voted to pay the bills. The majority voted to pay the bills.
With the understanding that we're going to meet, because these were all Christmas related, so before next year, we've gotta come up with something. But you got a guy that's sitting out there that paid for this out of his own pocket.
And he doesn't deserve, he didn't know about the rule when he paid for it and submitted the bill. And I didn't think he should be held for the $100.
I even made a motion I would donate to it just to get it paid and get him his money back.
So these 4 bills were approved by the purchasing committee.
Yes.
And then another question came up. And did Erica, were you the one that found the other question, or who legally figured this out? I mean, what, we paid for Christmas parties.
We paid
But
for
there
the
were no
steaks,
meetings.
but on the one that I'm on the rescue committee, let's just say, they had a meeting, or a Christmas party, they fixed steaks. I was invited to it, but I couldn't make it.
Is it in their budget?
Was it a public, was it a business meeting?
Oh, where it get, no, well, I was told yes and was told no, so I know there was no public notice put out on the meeting. I know there was no minutes taken at the time. And,
my advice is,
the other problem comes in, this is money from their fundraisers,
pockets.
but they put it in the county treasury. And that makes it county money, in my understanding.
I think we need to hold payment on those 4 bills until further discussion is held, and I think you need to go to the state's attorney and regard the legality of the payment.
Well, and another question too, I don't understand why they raise the funds from steak or hamburger, their cooks, they make money for, and they buy equipment that the county, we don't have the money to buy it. And I thoroughly appreciate every one of those men and all the time they put in there. They deserve to get a little pat on the back.
Erica?
I'm in the process of going through every state statute, every fund that we have in the county, and compiling those statutes that give us the statutory authority to pay out of those funds. What exactly every fund can pay out. It's a long process. I've had to contact Judge Harlow on one because finding it sometimes in the compiled statutes that are this big, but it's something that I've got partially finished, that once I complete it, I will get copies to every board member, because there is statute that dictates what can come out of every fund, what feeds it and what comes out. So that is one of the things that I'm working on.
Didn't we have a judge though tell us if it's in their budget, that we really don't have a say-so on it?
We've had that, but let's just take the advice and get it legal.
Yeah.
I want this, the board is, you know, what Mr. Kirk over here has explained to us, you know, we have no idea. What Mike Miller said, yeah, I probably was at the meeting and probably helped approve all that stuff, but maybe, you know, we've had times in the past we've been misled. I'm not gonna say we haven't. We're in a lawsuit out here on the west side of town that we were misled on.
East side.
East side of town, out here. And it's been going on 15 years, but we're still in it. And so, I appreciate what is being said. Let's listen, let's find out the legality, and we'll, the purchasing committee, who's the director of who's the chairman of the purchasing committee?
Lynn.
Okay, so Lynn, get with Lynn, Lynn gets with her, the purchasing committee comes back to us next month and makes a recommendation.
So from what I'm hearing from you is we're not gonna pay these bills right now, but do we need to have an amendment to that motion to saying that? What
Pay
is
the bills with the
Robert's rules
exception
with,
of the 4 that are questioned.
So moved.
Or did we even get a second to the first motion, or did you
Have a
amend your
second
motion?
from Dale, or not? Those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. It is adjourned.
That was adjournment, that's adjourned. Meeting's over.